Welcome back. This is Global Business on Afia TV. I am a former Ajumobi, reaching you live from Enugu, Nigeria. Tony Odukwe, an international trade expert and the MD of DEFCON Foods and Cosmetics Limited, joins us to discuss food security in Nigeria. Welcome, Tony.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to Global Business. Good to have you here. All right, let's start from the beginning. In an overall, when we talk about food security, what do we mean?
Well, food can be farmed, food can be processed, and food security is when you have enough of it, to feed your population. That's when you say you have food security. On the other hand, when you don't have enough of it, you can say you have food insecurity. So I hope that answers your question.
So why is food security very important?
It's absolutely very important for a number of reasons, for economic reasons, for biological reasons, and for health reasons. Human beings depend on food, to survive. And so if we don't have food, we suffer from malnutrition. And so for that reason, food is absolutely very important. Now, a lot of businesses deal in the food sector, whether it's, farmed food or processed food. And so these businesses make a living through dealing in these commodities, right? And so if anything happens, say there's a situation of war where there's scarcity of food, of course, companies will shut down. If companies shut down, citizens that work for these companies won't earn money. If they don't earn money, they can't buy food and they can't buy the commodities that they need, to run their families. So it's absolutely very important for both health and, economic reasons.
Okay. Health and economic reasons. I like that part on the economic reasons. And you could almost say that if food is shut down, the economy is shut down.
Well,
and we've also seen cases where people use food security, food insecurity as a weapon.
Absolutely.
Maybe a particular region is known for supplying a particular, another region.
Yes.
Food, and they're like the mainstay of this particular region. Yes. And if they just want to, destabilize that particular economy,
you can cut them off.
Cut off the food supplies.
It's great that you brought up that point, because I was also going to talk to you about the activities of a certain American who's collaborated with the largest seed scientist, a company called Monsanto. And so they are, registering patents on different crops, and so this is going to be used as a system of control, population control,
okay.
World control, takeover power. I don't know if I should mention the name of this person, but it's actually Bill Gates. We know what he's done, in the computer, and technology industry, and how he's benefited from a lot of monopoly. And so we see him making a move right now to actually monopolize, seeds. Okay, so he's registering a lot of, patents on a lot of seeds, which means he's going to be able to control these seeds in the future. And so what this means is that if he has monopoly on seeds, he decides who farms these seeds and who doesn't farm them. And so what we know is that food scarcity can be used, as a mode of terrorism, actually, to terrorize nations or to terrorize regions, So it's actually...
That's how food, how serious food security is. And of course, when you now start talking about food insecurity as well.
Yes.
But then let's look at Nigeria. What would you say is our level of food security at the moment? How are we faring?
Well, there was a prediction last year, I think it was from the United Nations, I believe, that there's going to be a high level of food insecurity in Nigeria. We haven't seen that happen. We're fortunate to
Yes, that prediction has been going on,
yes,
World Bank and a whole lot of people, and it can be quite scary when you hear that. But beyond that, that prediction that it's going to come, how are we faring in food security?
We're not faring badly because we still have food. There's no scarcity. There's no scarcity.
We're probably wasting food, so.
Oh well.
What do you think on that? Yeah, when you look at our farm produces that are still not being very maximized.
That's right. That's right. So food is being wasted to a large extent, yes, because, for example, tomato farmers in tomato harvest season lose a lot of tomatoes, and so if our government was really serious about food security, what we would do is offtake from these farmers. We don't have to let them suffer, the inability to sell their commodities. So what government should do actually is, I've always said this, scale industries, but make sure that you uptake from farmers, even if they don't have immediate buyers. Always uptake from them and store, put them in storage.
And you say something about the processing.
Yes.
Like, why allow these tomatoes to waste when you can actually convert them?
That's right.
Have them as tomato paste and
I was getting there, and that's why I started talking about
all of that.
That's why I started talking about the government of taking from the farmers. If you, some countries have what we call silos, right? I don't know that you can store tomatoes in silos, but then there is a storage system for every commodity, right? So what I expect the government to do is help these farmers become a ready off-taker, where you take from them and store. Then you can sell directly to the companies that need them for processing. So what that does for the farmer is encourage him to do more. Because if I farm this year and I lose majority of my harvest, and the same thing happens the next year, I won't come back to farm the third year, right? But you motivate them by encouraging them, make sure that there's a ready market for their commodities, buy these commodities at a good rate, so that they can go back to farm and farm for the next year, right? So for tomato farmers, we're seeing a lot of waste. We haven't gotten to the point of a scarcity of food. But there might be scarcity of rice.
Flood and all of that.
That's what I'm going to talk about. That's what I'm trying to talk about now. There might be scarcity of rice this year because a lot of rice farmers lost their farms last year. I learned about a guy who has millions of dollars worth of investment in a very large farm, which could be the largest rice farm we have around here, and he lost all of that to flooding last year.
Yes.
And so what we're going to see this year is possibly scarcity of rice, and you know what that means, to the families and to the economy. The price of rice
will mainstay, as a staple food, it's in every home. We can't have enough of it. When you look at that situation, what should the government be doing?
Well, first of all, I've alluded to the fact that government needs to become an off-taker for farmers, right? People who have farm maize and rice and all of that can depend on the government to take from them, store these things in silos, and then sell to both the exporters and the processors, right? So that's one thing government can do. The other thing government can do is to ensure that you make a lot of noise around farming. People around here still view farming as a dead man's job, an illiterate job. But that's absolutely wrong.
I like this point you're making. I mean, I agree with the point.
That's absolutely wrong. A lot of American farmers are very wealthy families. They've handed down this trade generation after generation, right? Some of the wealthiest farmers we have in this country were retired generals in the army. Some of them have been presidents of this country. Olusegun Obasanjo owns one of the biggest farms you can talk about in Nigeria.
Still very proud about his poultry farm.
That's right, and still very, very authentically, farming. How do you call it? Our current president is a farmer, right? Because when you talk about farming, it's not just about crops; it's also about livestock, right? And so, farming is big business. Farmers feed nations, control the world. Without farmers, we can't survive. And so, we need to change that mentality that people have that farming is a dirty man's, job. That's a lie. Farming
is big business, actually.
Absolutely. Agriculture is the largest employer of labor in Nigeria and any other place in the world. So we need to make a good noise around farming and encourage a lot of people to go into farming. Now, when we get enough people showing interest in farming, make sure there is funding for farmers. Make sure there's input for them. Make sure that there are equipment, tractors and stuff like that. In this town, I understand, I've heard a lot of farmers complaining that in this town, you can't hire tractors anywhere. Ministry of Agriculture doesn't have tractors. And so without tractors, how can farmers clear land? How can they actually be successful?
And these are not things they can just really get by
on their own because they're expensive.
Capital intensive,
and we say that a lot of farmers would say land is not available. It's not that land is not available, but you don't have the equipment to actually clear this land. Some of these lands have trees on them, have rocks on them. So you need to clear them and prepare them, get them ready for agriculture. So without tractors and the necessary equipment you need to make this happen, you can't farm, right? So we need to sensitize the polity or the population, to understand the importance of agriculture and why we need to go into it. Now, when we begin to go into it, encourage us actually to do better by providing funding, input, seeds, implements and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, that's quite interesting. What you have said makes so much sense. I love the part on branding, farming, reorientation.
Absolutely.
Because but it's hard work all the same. What will you say about the hard work? And that's
it is hard work when you're a subsistent farmer. It is a lot of work.
Okay.
When you're doing, subsistence
At
agriculture.
small scale.
Small scale. You have to use hoes.
Okay.
You can farm without using a single hoe. Farming has been automated all around the world. In Asia.
With technology.
That's right.
Mechanized farming.
Absolutely. So you can be a farmer and not get dirty, with technology. People are using drones in farms overseas, and I'm waiting to see that come to Nigeria. People are using drones to clear grass in the farms. People are using drones to apply fertilizers and pesticides and stuff like that. And so technology does that for you. You don't really have to sweat so much. But the problem is that our farmers are still slaving away in the farms, and at the end of the day, not getting compensated for the much work they put in.
Yes, that is really the point. You're hitting it on the head. They're working so hard and getting little in returns. And with technology, that can all change. And you even have people going into precision farming now. Technology is coming up where you can actually determine the exact quantity of water, nutrients the plant needs, and you're feeding it directly to the plant, and you're ensuring that it's coming out right.
Absolutely. You see, what I think is what we need to do again, what governments needs to do is to train our farmers on modern techniques of agriculture. Now, you don't really need to slave away in a farm somewhere to farm vegetables, because there's a system of farming vegetables today that you use just water, no soil, nothing. You just grow vegetables in water. And in commercial quantities, depending on how you want your operation to be, it's called hydroponics, right? So you can set up hydroponics around your house, and you actually farm vegetables with water, treated water, and then it produces vegetables, and you do not use sand, right? And then you can also farm something like yam. In a plot of land, you can farm 1 tubers of yam in 1 plot of land, farming in sacks. So if you're farming in sacks, that means you don't have to worry about tilling the ground. You're not stressing tilling the ground.
Yam still comes out really good.
Absolutely. So there are modern techniques in agriculture that we need to teach our farmers. It reduces the hard work. It reduces the apathy in agriculture. Because you can actually be a farmer and people don't know you're a farmer. Imagine owning a plot of land with a gate on it, and then every morning you come and walk into your farm, do your work, come out, and you're coming out clean, right? People don't know what you're doing in that plot of land, but you have, one tubers. You're expecting 1,000 tubers of yam in the harvest season. So agriculture is big business. It's interesting. It's a high yielding, sector, and we must encourage people to go into it.
We must invest in it. Yes. We must encourage people to go in it. Yes. We must reorient people on it and brand in it. But just before we round off, I would like you to just, tell us briefly, in the midst of all the challenges Nigeria has had in agriculture, and even insecurity was part of it. You saw farmers not really go to farm because of herders clashes and kidnap cases and stuff like that. We still have food, like you said. What do you think is attributing to this? It's
because of our population. People don't understand that population is a blessing. I've heard people like ex-Senator Bruce say that we need to do something about our population. Please, we don't need to do anything about the population. We actually need to grow our population.
Maximize the advantages
and grow it. We need to grow our population. Yes, because
still grow it.
Yes, because population translates to economic growth. Where there is a problem is where you are growing your population, but you're actually not putting all the economic principles that would feed them. Right? So instead of control the economy, control the population, why don't you actually put the right principles in place and, dot all your I's and cross all your T's to ensure that these population will, have jobs, will have, money for investments, will have funding for their businesses, right? Because if you get all of these right, then you can actually see the benefits of the population. Because what actually grows IGR is population. The more people you have, the bigger your IGR. So what you need to do is let there be a correlation between the population and employment. If you create employment, the masses will have jobs. When they have jobs, they will pay taxes, and governments will grow IGR. Right? So that's what we need to do. The population is helping us. We have even though we're encouraging more people to go in, but we still have a lot of farmers.
Doing farming.
Yeah, that's right. And when you put all their productivity together, we have food.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Tony Odukwe, for the insights you've shared with us here on Global Business, especially on food security. And we surely will continue this discussion.
I'd love to do
You'll be back here for that. All right, that is the much we will have on Global Business right here on Afia TV. I am a former Ajumobi saying enjoy more on Afia TV. Opening bell comes up next.